The Buckeye State Sheriff's Association is providing this podcast as a public service for informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host or guest of this podcast are their own and may not reflect those of the BSSA, employees of the BSSA, or any of its officials. Any reference to a specific product, entity, opinion, issue, or other such item does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation thereof by the BSSA. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association.
What drives you to do your job every day for more than 30 years?
You know, it's like baseball. If you're batting 250 to 300, you consider that a good day. But honestly, you failed 75% of the time already. You know, we're not always going to do things the right way. But just because you think you can make a difference and maybe help somebody out in some aspect, that's what I love about the job.
Welcome to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast, where we'll introduce sheriffs and deputies across Ohio. During this conversation, you'll get to know the men and women serving you and hear all about the good work being done in the Buckeye State every day. Now let's join your host, Paulding County Sheriff Jason Landers, and today's special guest.
Welcome to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. We're here today with Sheriff Doug Timmerman from Mercer County, Ohio. I'm Jason Landers, the sheriff in Paulding County and the host of today's podcast. Sheriff Timmerman, welcome in, man. You drove down up, I guess for you. You came up US 127. We met a little bit ago. How was the drive up?
It was nice. We have the air conditioning out in our office today, so I was glad to be up here. So
no better time to get out of the office, right? I mean, Absolutely. It's a hot one today as we're recording this today. This podcast will upload in August, but we're recording that beforehand, so Perfect. The engineers have time to get everything cleaned up and make us sound halfway decent on the radio. So it's a warm one out there today. So we've been able to see each other quite a bit here recently, Doug, with some, we'll get into talking maybe about our hobbies and interests. Sure. And last Monday, not only was an important fundraiser for us, we'll talk about that a little bit, but plays right into some hobbies and interests for us as well. But let's get started, Doug, if you would, to tell the listeners a little bit about who you are. So just talk about, Doug, growing up. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
Okay. Well, I graduated from Coldwater High School in 1991. I grew up west of Coldwater, about 7-8 miles in a little town called St. Anthony. My mom and dad, Jim and Janie, still reside out there. I got 6 siblings. My oldest sister, Connie, is married and lives in Fort Laramie. My brother, Jeff, is married, lives in Coldwater. My sister, Karen, lives outside of town. She just recently lost her husband, unfortunately. And my sister, Kathy, lives in Coldwater with her husband. My sister, Krista, lives out closer to Fort Recovery with her husband. And then my youngest brother, Adam, lives in Coldwater with his wife. Got a lot of school teachers in my family. So I'm kind of the oddball out when it comes to, to that side of it. So, I'm married to my wife, Jill. We'll be 28 years next month. We got 2 girls, Samantha. She's 27, and my youngest daughter, Sierra's 23.
Nice. So you talk about Mercer County, you talk about Coldwater, and there's about 7 miles outside of Coldwater, and that's got to get you pretty close to the Indiana state line, doesn't it? As you border Indiana.
It does.
And there's probably not a whole lot of distance left there, is there?
No, 1.5 miles. Where I grew up, 1.5 miles is to the state line. So, yeah,
okay.
I had a couple uncles lived over that way. So, Then my wife is originally from Montezuma. But went to Salina schools and hung out with a lot of Marion local kids down there. So, yeah, I mean, Mercer County, you either know the other half or related to the other half. So it's a great community to live in. So.
Now, this is something I find interesting. When you drive through Mercer County, Ohio, it has to be one of the cleanest counties I've ever seen. Now, there's probably those spots that some would say the south side of the tracks or these types of, but I'm telling you, Doug, when I drive through Mercer County, and I've driven through it often in the last, specifically about 4 and 5 years, as one of my boys went to college down south of there, a little ways. But Jamie and I have driven through there a long time. We always comment about not only the cleanliness of the county, but the farms are remarkable. When you drive through there, they are clean. And then here's what I wanted to talk about. How about these concrete, what are they? A grain crib or a corn crib? All these farms have this concrete
silos.
The silos.
Yes.
I mean, they're everywhere. Now, if you up here in our county, If there are any of those left, it's remnants and they're broken down. But you go into Mercer County,
so they are actually they're everywhere, especially in the south part of the county. Up north there's a lot more grain farming. In the southern part of Mercer County, you got a lot of grain farming, but a lot of agriculture as far as poultry, swine, and dairy left down in the south part. But yeah, they are actually, if you notice, if you go through there, maybe pay attention, but you'll notice a lot of what we call bunk style silos anymore, the ones that are on the ground being covered with the tarps, and it looks like there's tires on top of them for weights. It's obviously cheaper to build them, but the safety, we've had a lot of silo accidents and fatalities over the years, and I think those are becoming a little more obsolete, the ones 80, 90 feet in the air. So, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's just stay. I told you when we came here, I'd like to flip this format up a little bit and just go a different direction. So let's just stay talking about your community. Now, what I go to when I think about Mercer County and many in the sports world, a lot of what I do in my personal role is sports related with my family and different types of things of coaching. But how about the MAC conference down there, man? And let's build that into the community you serve, right? That's the kind of the point of this podcast, is to connect sheriffs and deputies with the communities you serve. So talk, if you will, for a bit, as long as you like, because I could get lost in this conversation, about the villages, the towns, the cities within Mercer County. And then if you don't lead into it, I'll ask you to expand more on the school districts that are there. And by gosh, you could talk for hours about the success athletically of the MAC conference.
Well, and like you, I get down to Columbus quite a bit, and we talk to other sheriffs, and you listen to them talk about sports. I guess we take it for granted. I leave there, and Marty, my chief deputy, and I'll talk. We don't know how good we got it, because every year somebody in the MAC, whether it's track or football or baseball or softball, volleyball, you name it, they're down in Columbus for a state title. And now I will caveat this with, I got to share a couple schools with Voorhees, because there's a couple of them over in Auglaize County, and I think Versailles is actually down in Dark, so they're in the MAC as well. But around us, Parkway is the furthest north school we have that's in the MAC. Salina is in the Western Buckeye League, so that is the only school district in Mercer County that's not in the MAC. And then you got Fort Recovery, far southwest, and you have Mariah Stein, or Marion Local, as people are more used to calling it, and you got Coldwater and St. Henry, and there's been a lot of rivalries over the years. So Minster and Bremen are over in Auglaize County, but again, you got a lot of families related to each other, even over in Minster and Bremen, and then just some great rivalries. The one thing I will say is, as much as they get into that, and then you got New Knoxville too, and New Knoxville does not have a football team, but they are in the MAC when it comes to the other sports. So the sportsmanship, everybody gets amped up for the games. Everybody can talk a little trash, but when they're playing the game, the sportsmanship is just awesome. And you're going to fight for your school, but at the end of the day, you shake hands and you move on. And like as we were talking before we did this earlier, or before we went on air, I used to umpire high school baseball, and then for maybe 13 years I did high school basketball, junior high and high school basketball. I refereed that. And even the officials that I was in a league with, I guess you could say that, or our group, or we had to go to so many rules meetings and stuff like that, they loved it down here. they were like fighting to come down here and do games. And again, we take it for granted. And when I would go further away to do games, it was different to see the way the other schools were set up, but, maybe some of the sportsmanship wasn't quite there, I guess, so that made it a little tougher to referee some of those games. I could talk sports all day. I was blessed enough after I got out of basketball that I knew one of the ADs, and I got into coaching high school golf for about 10 years for the Coldwater boys. That was a treat. Those young guys now are all in their mid to late 20s, maybe even a couple of them maybe touching on 30 by now. But, I see those guys around the community now, and we can still have a laugh about how things were back in the day. So, when everybody asks how as far as officiating basketball, the thing that I loved was the talk you heard on the floor that the fans didn't didn't recognize, or the little bit of a sportsmanship that one team would show to the other that the fans didn't recognize or didn't see just because of comments being made, or a little bit of laughter on the floor by both teams that if you weren't on the floor, you couldn't hear or see that stuff. But I will go back to a day where I was doing a Marion local St. Henry JV basketball game, and Marion local was up. I want to say, if my memory serves me right, like 13 points, less than a couple minutes to go. And one of my friends that I used to, and Bill Elking coached the JV boys basketball team for Marion local, and he was also their golf coach. So I had known him from the golfing side of things. And Bill is just one of the greatest guys. Never got wound up for anything. Really had the kids, that was on the forefront. It was all about the kids. And this guy had never said a cross word. But they St. Henry shoots a three-pointer. They steal the inbound, get a layup. There's a turnover by Marion local. Next thing you know, we're down to like 3 points lead instead of the 13 they had with less than 30 seconds to go. And Marion, one of their big guys inside, and you know how Marion is, they can grow them down there. They're tall.
Oh, yeah.
So they feed it into the Marion kid, and he takes a power dribble, turns, puts his shoulder into the defender, and puts him right on the ground. Well, it's an offensive foul for sure. And I remember walking by, and of course, Marion locals, they're letting me hear it. They saw it differently. So I walked by the bench to go report the foul, and Bill Elking just goes, "Doug!" And I'm like, "Bill?" He put his shoulder down into him. He goes, "I know he did." But the crowd thought Bill was fighting for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the stuff as a referee that you go, it's okay. You go ahead and fight for your team, but Bill's respect was always there. And that's the stuff that I loved about sports. I mean, There's so many life lessons that you can learn from that. You're not always going to win. And someday you're going to work with these people. You may marry into somebody's family. I mean, you never know. So it was just great to see the sportsmanship out there. So, and 1 to 2 games a year out of the 90 that I did, you'd walk off the floor and go, "Wow, that's just some tough business there." You know what I mean? So I had some nights of that, I guess.
Oh man, it's just amazing to think of it down there. And then rumors that you get up here, and of course I know some of the folks down that way, and became really good friends with Jeff Gray. Your predecessor there. But just talk about. Geez, something like the 50-50s at a football game.
Yeah, they're insane.
That news comes across the state, and they talk about these insane 50-50s. It's crazy.
I go to the Coldwater football game 3 years ago, maybe 4. Excuse me. And it's Coldwater Marion. That's usually one of your biggest 50-50 draws. And I see 3 guys walking up to, sitting in the general admission. And my brother was sitting next to me, and I kind of nudged him. I said, these guys aren't from here. And so they come up and they're like, "Anybody sitting here?" "Nope." "Are we allowed to sit here?" I said, "You can sit wherever you want." And they turn around and they're like, "This is neat." And I'm like, "Where are you guys from?" Well, they were down from southern, closer to Cincinnati. Drove up here just to watch. They said we go to the high school game every week somewhere throughout the state of Ohio because they love high school football. And this was the game of the week that they wanted to see. And they went, "We knew we drove into Mercer County when we seen the fields because it looks like everything's mowed down." Right. And I'm like, okay, again, take that stuff for granted, right?
Yeah.
So these guys, and I said, "Well, I kind of figured you weren't from here. You don't have the blue and gold on for Marion. You didn't have the orange and black for Coldwater." And the one kid had pulled out several $100s worth of 50-50 tickets that he'd bought with a chance, hope of a chance to win there. But anyhow, through the night, we got to talking to him. Talking high school sports, and these guys knew sports. I mean, your big boys will do this, your receivers are going, and they were spot on. I mean, they had it all figured out. But we always got together after a football game back to my house for a drink or two, and my wife always made food for some of the family members and other people that went to the game. So I offered for them to come back, and they couldn't believe that. They did. And to this day, we're still friends. I've been down to their place 2 or 3 times. They've been up here. They actually came to my golf outing when I was doing my fundraiser for running for sheriff. So that's what high school sports is about. You know what I mean?
It's just crazy, man.
It is. It's awesome.
And we're just in a different spot, I think. Now, I didn't go to school down there where you went to Coldwater, but up here at Paulding. And, at that time, 30 plus years ago, the rivals didn't really get together like that.
No.
Today,
Yeah.
you would see it. I could take some of our local schools here from coaching, or either with my sons, and you might play your rival. Antwerp might play Paulding, and at the end of the game, the kids drive back to the same spot and go eat at McDonald's,
Absolutely.
or they go back and play
Absolutely.
video games, or go watch the game on mysports.live or something, where you couldn't even imagine that 30 years ago. It would have been a fist fight.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
it's just
that's good. It's all good.
I just think it's a unique part of the state that you come from, Doug. And I like every time we go through there, we think about we've been over with friends of ours in St. Henry over to Fishmo's, right?
Yeah,
I mean, talk about Fishmo's.
Exactly.
And then you go to mixed sports, right? There's mixed sports.
Oh,
mixed
in
sobers.
Coldwater.
I mean, when you get down into Coldwater.
Yeah, and you can go down to the corner in Rice Stein or to Town Tavern in Chickasaw, and everyone's got their own little gathering place after a game. So, but no, and the great thing is, it's not all the schools are the same size. I mean, they obviously get paired up in their divisions as time's going, but Parkway, they've had some great sporting events over the years with their girls softball teams, and been strong in volleyball years ago with football. And that stuff just kind of all ebbs and flows. I mean, eventually when I was playing baseball in the early 90s, I mean, your rivalry was Parkway. I mean, that and they were coming after us and we were going after them, and it was nip and tuck on everything. They got a couple state championships in that, and Fort Recovery's had some great basketball over the years. Did real well with their football team a few years ago. Again, they're strong in volleyball, and I mean, you could go to every school and watch that ride up and down.
The history of Marion Local, for the Northerners that would refer to that. We played at my youngest son's senior year. We were going to play them in the regionals, and it didn't even have a whole lot to do as we were going through Coach Bill was going through the scouting report and who their players were, but it's just the history of the school that's so intimidating. So, our kids with social media, they're more familiar with some of those things, but it's just trying to overcome the mental aspect of you're going to play this premier division, small school athlete, whether it's football or basketball. I mean, the state trophy is just crazy, man. So what a game, and we were able to win that game. And you talk about sportsmanship. I'll never forget the sportsmanship from not only the players but the coaches, and then some of the fans that would run to afterwards and say, we watched your team play, and we felt like our sportsmanship was pretty good too, and that started with the head coach right there. But man, just good small school stuff, right? You don't get lost in the hustle or the bustle, the big city schools that we see in the 3 C's or otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I will hand that to a lot. Well, first off, you just got great coaches. That's where it starts. But at the end of the day, it's the parents. I mean, when the parents raise their kids to be good kids, and then let the coaches make them good athletes. But I mean, our families back in Mercer County are just blessed that they stick together, and their kids are I should say the parents are very much involved in their kids' lives. And you can tell that makes a huge difference. And you can solve a lot of problems that way, so. Yeah,
well, hey, Sheriff, let's talk about a little bit more about Mercer County. Let's switch maybe to the industry side. What comes from Mercer County? The largest physical thing that I can think of is Grand Lake St. Mary's that comes over towards Salina. But just spend a minute, if you will, talk about the other things within Mercer County that come to mind.
Well, I mean, a huge agricultural county. I mean, you got poultry and swine and dairy and a lot of grain farming over there. But as far as the industry goes, I mean, J&M Manufacturing makes the grain carts and other things in Fort Recovery. Crown with your lift trucks, they pretty big company there for us as well. You got, if you remember the old New Idea plant in Coldwater, obviously where New Idea used to make their manure spreaders there, went out of business years ago. There's a lot of smaller companies in there. In that old factory, that's huge for, employment purposes. We got a really great hospital in Coldwater, employs some really good people there. It's grown over the years. Huffy's used to be the biggest, Huffy Bicycles, which is now where Crown kind of took over that when they moved out of the area. But a lot of little, what I would call smaller factories over there. Lincoln, Electric. You got Pax Machine and a lot of places like that making car parts and stuff. But the CAPT, Salina Aluminum Precision Technology, or they call the CAP plant, out east of Salina, is really big manufacturer for car parts and pistons and stuff like that they make out there. So if you need it, you can find a job in Mercer County if you want one. So.
I have to think, as you're talking, I was thinking about Salina, Doug, and it made me think back to when I played basketball in Salina. Is the gym still there?
Oh, yeah,
that
the
you
field
kind of
house.
sunk down into?
The field house. Yeah.
It's still...
It's still there. So Salina is, they finished up their new elementary school last year, and they are in the middle of doing their high school right now. So if you drive by there, you can see the structure of the new high school they're putting up. My understanding is they are building a new gym in that high school. Now, I'm not going to get in the weeds here because I don't want to upset any constituents, but I think Salina is half and half of, are we tearing the field house down or are we keeping it? Because there's a lot of history in that field house.
I just remember, I think I first went there as a sophomore in high school.
Oh, it's
and I
awesome.
just couldn't believe, that was pretty
it's like
neat.
a 3-foot block wall right up against the bleachers.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get off the floor too far. So, yeah.
Let's go back to talk. Now we've covered your town, your community that you serve. Let's talk a little bit more about you, Doug. You talked about going up through high school to graduation. Now take us from graduation, where'd you go, what'd you do, and take us up to your first election.
Okay. So actually I started in my law enforcement career when I was a sophomore in high school. They had an Explorer program at the sheriff's office that I joined at the recommendation of my old high school principal. So I joined that when I was 16, and I started riding with deputies. That's where I kind of got the interest in that. And then after high school, I went to the Peace Officers Training Academy in Lima at the Apollo Career Center. So I graduated from that in 92, got on the Sheriff's Office Reserves in 93, and then I got hired full-time as a 911 dispatcher in 1994. I did that almost exactly 2 years to the day because I got hired on July 4th. I thought, what a great day to get hired because you're getting holiday pay on your first day. And then July 1st of 96, I went to the road, and I did that for about 13 years, I think. Until I went to the detective division. A couple years into that, I became a detective supervisor. Then I got a chance to be promoted to captain of the enforcement division. And then my now chief deputy was the captain back in the jail at the time. Actually, he was the enforcement captain when I got promoted, and he went back to the captain of the jail. We had an opening there. And then Marty and I switched a couple years later after Sheriff Gray had went, hey, if you have an interest in being sheriff, you need to know all aspects of the sheriff's office. So the one part I didn't ever get to do was the jail. So I went back there for 2 years as the captain. I always said that's the best, worst job there is because I worked with some of the best employees back there that work hard every day. But then you know how the inmates can be, and they can wear you out once in a while too. So then after Gary Toby, who was the chief deputy, had retired, I want to say 20, it was probably around 22. Then I got, Sheriff Gray asked me to be the chief deputy then, and then I filed to run for sheriff and obviously just took over here in January of this year. So
yeah, that's great, man. What a future. Add all that up for me. I took a few notes here, Doug, but I didn't add up the total. How many years in law enforcement?
So I think I'm starting my 33rd full time right now, but counting the reserve time and Explorer time, I'm going to 16. So let me do the math there. I guess we'd be right at 36.
Yeah, that's
36,
awesome,
37 maybe. So
yeah, that's awesome.
It's the only thing I've done other than dairy farming. While I went to the academy, and then obviously. I worked at Coldwater Schools when I was in high school too as a custodian in the evening, so that was interesting too. So, but
yeah, that's pretty cool. Talk about the first. Well, we're into July now, so nearly 7 full months as a sheriff. Is there anything there? I mean, you had a great, as you described your assignments throughout your tenure at the sheriff's office. You hit about all the spots, right? Sure. So you were as prepared as anybody can be prepared. Not everyone becomes a sheriff with that kind of preparation, but anything throw a curveball to you, or just that you found, I didn't understand that was going to happen.
Yeah, right after the first of the year, we had a major drone issue. We were getting unknown drones flying all over Mercer County and to this day we still get calls on them. No idea, where the origin of those things are, but we were getting multiple calls for several weeks on those, and worked with some state legislators, and actually, like Bernie Marino and actually Sean Duffy's team had called looking for any way they could to help us with it. So I wasn't prepared for that, but I'm not sure anybody would be. And then, we had a really bad bout of bird flu right after I took over. And, that's terribly concerning, and you feel helpless because nothing you can do for the farmers. You just have to wait it out for that so that's subsided. Thank you for that. I mean, that was devastating for some of our farmers. So that part, I don't have an answer for that, so I can't fix that, but it was definitely concerning.
Yeah, it is interesting when you talk about those things. I thought that'd be a neat question to ask you, Doug, because I too, lack of that jail administrator role, I worked in the jail. It's where I started. So I felt like I had a good understanding about the jail, but working all the other positions that you could really work within the office, and then you become the sheriff, where you bear now all this responsibility for all these things that are going on, and then things get thrown your way that you really have to, you have to get through it, right? Yeah. I say a lot of times the buck stops here. So, there's people out there. For me, Jeff Gray was one of those people. If something came upon me that I had not dealt with yet, I wasn't necessarily sure how to do it, I might shut my door, call Jeff's cell phone and say, hey, have you ever experienced this? Yes or no? And if it was yes, what did you do? And if it wasn't, what would you do? And then he would empower me with that knowledge, and then I can make my own decision.
Sure.
So I want to do it this way or that way.
And you bring up a good point, because, I've spoken to you before, talked to Sheriff Riggenbaugh and Van Wert, and I'm blessed because the counties that surround me and are close to me don't have a rookie sheriff like I am. So, Mark Whitaker in Dark County's answer, because Mark had a lot of the same problems with the bird flu down there and the drone problem. Sheriff Voorhees in Auglaize County, our counties are very similar. He's lent some great advice too. So, but and you've been around long enough to know this, Sheriff Landers. I mean, the go-to person is no doubt Bob Cornwell, and he's, I burn up that phone a few times and he's got the answer that quick. He always ends it with, "You can do whatever you want, Sheriff." I'm like, well, I'm calling you because you've seen this. And I got to pick his brain at the golf outing the other day and listen to his history of how he got started and how long he's been there. That's irreplaceable. I mean, there's no way that amount of knowledge can be replaced overnight.
It's remarkable, Doug. So let's just stay right there and talk about the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. That's a sponsor of this podcast, and we're going to have an ad break to talk about that here in just a minute. But talk just for a minute, if you will. I know I've seen you for years. Yep. You were fortunate that Sheriff Gray would bring you along to committee meetings and trainings and different things. Talk about the association a little bit, what it means to you. Expand on, I mean, you're right, the tenure of Bob and Mona Cornwell and what they bring to the association. We've talked about now this, you're going to be episode number 19. So for 18 prior episodes, we spent a little bit of time talking about people's appreciation for them. So talk about BSSA.
Well, and I'll go back to say that, I've been blessed in my career. We all need a break somewhere, right? Somebody that, take us under their wing or give us a chance. And, I got hired under Sheriff Eicher, but Sheriff Gray was the chief deputy at the time. So I worked with, Jeff Gray for 24 years as him being sheriff. So I was always blessed that he gave me opportunities inside the office, and including that was going to a lot of the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association things. And we started talking about, someday he was going to retire, probably in 2011, 2012 era. But so I went with him to a lot of things, and I'll never, forget the first time that I met Bob and Mona, and, just the dynamic people that they are. The respect that they give to the sheriffs it just blows my mind. And I think I'm pretty good, and I could probably rattle off 90% of them, but Bob Cornwell and Mona, don't forget a sheriff's name, and those change every 4 years, and how he can rattle them off like that just blows my mind. But no, they're very respectful people. They have certainly put the BSSA in a very positive position. I feel like, and I got the chance to serve on the legislative committee now, so it's always nice that you get to hear about the new pending House bills and the Senate bills, and you get a little say-so in that. I'll give kudos to Mackenzie Davis for, him doing such a great job for the BSSA, but just how Bob and Mona lead that ship with 88 very dynamic personalities, and they seem to keep the waters calm. I don't know how they do it. And, I was... as you get elected, you're required to do 3 weeks of training. So I was down there with 31 of us new guys, met some very, very good people that I'm sure are going to do a very good job. But again, we were spoon-fed our training from the BSSA. This is how you take care of this. And brought in some very good instructors in each of those topics. So, they set us up for success, and that's what I love. I mean, how you said earlier, the buck stops with us being sheriff, but I always feel like there's one more phone call to be able to be made down to Bob and Mona for those answers if you really need them. And if they don't have the answer, they will direct you to a sheriff that they know have experienced that in the past and how they handled it and the pluses and minuses of the way they dealt with that, But the emergency stuff, you just got to make a call on that as we're and hope it works out well. So,
yeah, you do. You talk about Bob and Mona. One thing I'll say that you talked about it. I've spent as much time with them this year, more time with them this year than any other year since I've been the elected sheriff, and I've gotten to know them real well over those years. But this year particularly, the phone never stops ringing, man.
No, it doesn't.
Bob answers that phone. If he's dealing with something else that's more important, he pushes a button and tells you he's calling you right back. Then he calls you right back. And you said something that rings true, and I've heard this many times, is their mission is to tell you the right thing so you look good. I mean, that's what they want. They want sheriffs to succeed. Not every sheriff succeeds. There's sheriffs that don't listen to the guidance they're given. They don't listen or read the rules and the laws, and they get in a pickle.
Sure.
And so, even those sheriffs, Bob and Mona do everything they can to try to lead them the right way, to tell them what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And most of what they know is from experience, right? You're talking 44, 42 years of experience. That's a long time, man, that they've been in those positions.
Well, yeah, and the one thing is and I mentioned it about how he can remember 88 sheriffs in their county and their name, and those change every 4 years, and but even when you bring your spouse down, I mean, my wife's been going with me for a few years to these events, and he does not forget her name. I don't know how he does it, but he makes everybody feel like a big family when we're down there, which is just an awesome atmosphere, and he I don't know. He excels beyond. We go to the National Sheriff's Conference. Ohio's pretty much at the top when you go to the National Sheriff's Conference. We look good because of Bob. I mean, he's got a setup. So
he has a setup real well.
Yes.
We just at the National Conference a few weeks ago, and I think we had there were 27 of the 88 sheriffs there on the register, and brought some executive staff with them, and We do that. We do a lot of that, and Bob keeps us going. Let's go back to talk about you a little bit. You talked about 30-plus years of experience, Doug.
Sure.
Is there any cases that stand out to you, investigations and things you want to talk about?
Sure. I mean, I had only been detective for a short amount of time, and Chris Hamburg, and Chris was the one that encouraged me to go back to the detectives when there was an opening, and but Chris had left and went to BCI, and it wasn't even a week after he left. We had a very ugly double homicide that occurred in Fort Recovery, and that went unsolved for 2+ years. And that was a hard case. I mean, I had BCI down to help me with that. Unfortunately, it's a really bad way to make friends, but I made a lot of friends, learned a lot of things from that, including being friends with the family members of the victims. And, I knew of them before, got a whole new different outlook on their respect now, and especially with their son, who was their spokesperson of the family, and just an awesome family that was victimized by some drug users that had no care for life. So those, we got 2 people in prison now for that, serving a couple life sentences. But if you want to ask my honest opinion, I don't think we have all the players involved. That case is forever where we needed to, have access to it. So, that was a very tough 2.5 years of a lot of Saturdays and Sundays, and it's not the amount of time that we put in. It was the fact that we could not give them answers as fast as we wanted to. Everybody wants justice, and so did I, but it just took a while, So, that was a tough case for us, but I had a lot of help, like I said, with BCI and I, but there was a brand new detective that started and took Chris's job, Megan Baker, and you probably know Megan, and she kept the report together, kept me together. She laid out the paperwork. This is what we need to interview today. This is who we're going to go see today, and she was on top of that. So then I got some help a little bit later from Chad Forkamp when he came back into the detectives. So we had a good crew, and we managed through it, and it's just something you don't want to do, but you got to do. So, other than that, that was as tough as it got for detectives. I was involved in an officer-involved shooting in 2005. Never something you want to be involved in. But, again, all turned out well from that. I've been blessed in my career. Worked with some of the greatest people there are. And it's no different. You got employees that are salt of the earth people, We got them too. So I'm glad to have them. I got a great command staff now. So I kind of sit back and let them do their thing, and
Sure.
hopefully give them a little guidance if I have any to give them. So
yeah. Now there was another case I tried to pay some attention to as it went along. And maybe you don't want to talk about this. I don't know what you could say about it, but just the forensic side.
the Bones case.
The Bones case, man. I mean, can you talk about that at all?
I was still a detective when that started. And yeah, I mean, a very freakish case. Actually, I was, as much as this is going to pain me to say this, I was at a Bengals game with the Sheriff Gray at the time, and I am not a Bengals fan, but he had tickets, so I was at a Bengals game when we got a call that a lady walking her dog along the lake. The dog showed some interest to this area, and then picked up a bone, and the ladies. So we sent the deputies out there. We look at it. It looked like a bone, and so we got a hold of the crime lab. Or the coroner's office in Montgomery County, had them look at it on Monday, and he said, yeah, it's a human bone, which, okay, now we're back in the area on Monday afternoon, and we're digging, and it was freezing cold. So for 3 days, we, with the help of other agencies, recovered the majority of a human corpse, minus the elbows down, minus the knees down, and minus the neck up. So we were missing, but we were missing, hands and forearms from both sides, and, your shins down and feet from both sides, and no skull. So that again, a long case, right? I mean, I think that was 6+ years before we solved it, and the forensics behind that would blow your mind. But I'm gonna hand it to Megan Baker, who was a detective at the time, and Chad Forkamp. And Carla Bacher put in a ton of time with the help of the crime lab from BCI. And we didn't even know who the victim was. We later found out he was from Kentucky, but we had one of the bones tested, and they were able to tell by I'm going to screw this up, isotopes of something or another, but because of the drinking water supply, they were able to tell us what parts of the United States this person would have come from. Incredible. Yeah, and something to do with the oxygen. And so the blue might have been the water and the red's the oxygen. And if you overlaid them, it's like these are the only places this person could have lived at. And that one dot, it did show him in Corbin, Kentucky, where he's originally from. But he went to Columbus. He was eventually murdered in Columbus. He was dismembered in Columbus. And then the suspects driving back to Indiana stopped here and there and was dispelling of the human remains, but they got tired because it was late in the morning, and they basically dumped the remainder part of the body in Mercer County. So they have since been caught, and one's doing life in prison. While we were in the process of arresting the other one, they took their own life. So very bizarre case. But the forensics on that, we found the car that they used like 6.5 to 7 years later, and found the victim's DNA in there, found the victim's DNA in an apartment complex that had been remodeled. It would blow your mind.
That's impressive, man. And
awesome.
we're going to get that presentation.
Absolutely.
I think that's something we're going
to put
great. Together, just because of there's so many fantastic things that come as a result of that to tell people, no matter how seasoned you are,
absolutely,
to not stop.
The one you put on last year at the BSSA.
That's what it makes me think about the Nancy Eagleson case. And, unfortunately, over years and years and years, it stopped, right? And then, people pass away, memories are forgotten, things are lost, evidence is misplaced, lost. And so I think what's important for law enforcement community to hear your presentation from your folks will be, one of the takebacks is don't stop.
Absolutely.
Just keep calling someone else to come in and help, because along the line, it's just.
I'll never forget the day that Carla came in and Carla Bacher, and doing all of the research on social media that she did, and getting search warrants and subpoenas. And when she read me this, the search that was done on this search engine, and it was the specific car that we knew that they used, and it's like, okay, now we know who our suspects are. We got it narrowed down. It was like, then it was only a matter of time of, looking deeper into them, it's fantastic. And like your presentation, and as many years as we got on, we learned something from that, and you can pass that on to the new detectives of going, these are the kind of things that you can think of. We don't always have the answer, but somebody's done it before. Yep. Again, going back to Bob Cornwell, he knows who's done it before. Yep. Go check with them, so, yeah.
Yeah, man, it's just, Just fun to think about.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what we're in this job for, and I'm going to ask you that question in a minute. What drives you? And I'll just say it that way right now. I mean, what drives you to come to work every day and do this job? Because when you just talk about the closure, even as drastic and tragic as the loss of your Bones case, the individual that was identified for their family, but to bring the closure to it in a case that in the onset you think we'll never know who done this. We'll never know anything about it. I mean, but what drives you to do your job every day for more than 30 years?
Honestly, couple things. One is because you think you can make a difference, right? Now, we all, it's like baseball. If you're batting 250 to 300, you consider that a good day. But honestly, you failed 75% of the time already. But, we're not always going to get it right or, do things the right way. But just because you think you can make a difference and maybe help somebody out in some aspect, that's what I love about the job. And the fact that you go to work every day and you don't know what you're going to do. I mean, I come to work and I don't know what's today going to bring for me? I don't know. And I love navigating through that, not always. I mean, there are times where I wish I would punch a clock and go home and the phone wouldn't ring anymore, or, that personnel problem wouldn't be my problem, whatever that case may be. But no, for the most part, it's, can you make a difference and make somebody's day a little bit better? And the fact that I don't know what the next minute's going to bring. And some of that intrigues me, So
before we take the ad break, Doug, let's talk just one last time about you. Talk about your hobbies and interests. That's a question I kind of like, because when we talk about connecting sheriffs and deputies with the communities they serve, hopefully hundreds and thousands of your residents are going to listen to this thing, and now they'll know what interests you. What do you do?
So, I enjoyed being on a little mini farm when I grew up. I enjoy cattle. Always enjoyed raising steers because it's kind of like stress-free for me, I always enjoyed coaching high school golf. I still enjoy playing golf today. And I enjoyed refereeing basketball. Part of the reason I got out of refereeing basketball was at the advice of Sheriff Gray. It's like, if you're going to run, you don't want people upset with you. So, when you leave a basketball court or a baseball field, they're either happy with you and maybe the other side's not. So, but that was never my intent, is to make it about me on the court. But that can happen. I mean, referees make bad calls too. Sure. That happens, But what I really enjoy is my wife Jill's got a great family, and I have a great family. I enjoy playing pinochle with my family. Our pinochle games get a little loud and obnoxious and a lot of name calling. We take it pretty serious. So our families are very tight, and we do a lot together. Last night, my side of the family got together, went to Buddy's house. We were at a golf simulator, and Mom and Dad were there and got some snacks. We played golf and we mess with each other. So that's what life's about to me. So I enjoy that.
That's awesome, man. We're going to go ahead and take our ad break. We'll come back, continue on with Sheriff Doug Timmerman from Mercer County right after this break.
This podcast is sponsored by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. The BSSA is in Columbus, Ohio, and was established in 1931. The Buckeye State Sheriff's Association was formed to perpetuate an efficient organization of Ohio sheriffs and their deputies. BSSA provides an exchange of information pertaining to the duties, methods, and official practice of its members. The association also exerts such influence as may be necessary to bring about and preserve legislation in harmony with the needs of enforcement officials and the safety of the public. The BSSA supports the efforts of this podcast to promote Ohio sheriffs and deputies and their mission to serve and protect the citizens of Ohio.
Welcome back to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. We're going to continue on with Sheriff Doug Timmerman from Mercer County, Ohio. Doug, we're going to now focus a little bit more on your office. Tell the listeners about the Mercer County Sheriff's Office. Just kind of generalize, how many employees do you have? How's things go there?
Yeah, good. Well, we have in the high 60s to low 70 on employees as time goes. We got a jail that holds up to 110 people. Obviously we got the county's 911 dispatch center in our county. We normally have anywhere from 8 to 10 dispatchers working full time in there. About 20 corrections officers are for full staff in our jail. 15 patrol deputies are for full staff, but we're a little short right now. I have 5 detectives, 3 of them what I call general assignment detectives, and 2 guys assigned to the drug task force if we're up to full staff. So, I got a great command staff. We got some unique things that we do in our county. It was big in the drone program when it started. We got several deputies or detectives that are certified in traffic crash reconstruction. So we've used them on a lot of our fatalities. And that's one thing I've offered to share with the neighboring counties. If you need that resource, give us a holler. And like Mike Voorhees over in All Glaze, they got a SWAT team over there. So if I need them, they're the closest one. And we share our crash reconstruction team with them a lot if they need it. So, we got a lot of our people, because we're not super, super large. A lot of them are cross-trained in multiple things that they can do. We got dispatchers that are drone pilots. We got road deputies that are drone pilots, detectives that are drone pilots. We got a person in our jail that runs our lie detector test for us, so we do a lot of cross training. And so,
you talk about drone pilots. Drones are becoming so useful in our office, and just if any of our staff, my staff listens to this podcast, be kind of interesting, because just recently I saw a report where had a motorist hit a cow that got loose out in the road. So as they were looking for the owner, and the owner comes about, they said, well, the injured cow took off this way. In the darkness, it'd take you a long time to find that.
Sure.
Deputy that happened to be a drone pilot put the drone up in the air, and with that thermal,
especially at night with heat, you can
it's
see
crazy.
Great.
And,
that's awesome.
Something else we did that just makes me think about, we talk about dispatchers being trained. We have one deputy in the jail that we trained, and kind of a logic, because he showed some interest in that. Thought, well, he's not necessarily out in the car all the time or very much at all, but if there's an incident in town close to our office, and the deputies that are coming in, or maybe there's not a pilot on duty and he could go outside the building and put that drone up in the air and be able to see the whole entire town.
Absolutely.
Just a matter of minutes. So it's just interesting. I see a time, I don't know if you agree or disagree, where they'll just be kind of standard issued property in our cruisers.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, and like anything else, the price of them are coming down. Mm-hmm. You can get some Cadillacs out there, and you can get ones that'll do a job for a better price, but you add that cross training part, if you got a big scene, your road deputies are out there anyhow. You need them because they're supposed to be focusing on something else. So if the dispatcher can fly the drone while they're paying attention to the other stuff, that helps.
Sure.
So that's, I like that idea. And people in our office want to do something other than their normal everyday job. If they get out once in a while to do other things, I think they appreciate that.
Oh yeah,
so,
that line in their job description, other duties
absolutely
as assigned, that applies all over the
absolutely.
place.
Absolutely.
Sure does.
Yeah.
Sheriff, how about any programming within your office? Do you have a Sheriff's Explorers or Associates, Reserve Specials? Do you have any kind of recruiting things? What else is going on within your office?
We have a junior deputy program, which was the Explorer program when I started. We just steered away from that because of the issues with the Boy Scouts of America. And so we have a junior deputy program right now. One of our junior deputies is currently, I think he's got to take his test here on August the 7th. If he passes that, he's going to be going to the academy. That's his entry-level exam. So, that's nice that there is quite a few of our employees that we currently have that were in the Explorer/Junior Deputy program at some point. Mm-hmm. So that's where they got their start as well, kind of like I did. So I love that idea. We had backed away from the Reserve Deputy program for several years because of an insurance thing. But I just recently had a great sergeant that worked midnights. He actually started about a month after I did. He retired. He is going to come back and join our reserve program now. We're going to start it back up with him and maybe some others. So, nice. Recruiting, that's always a thing, and Ashley at the office is always putting some stuff together for recruiting. Corey, our IT guy, always pushing that stuff out. So we've got some ideas, some things in the work. Just pushed out the other day about our local Citizens Academy. So we're going to be doing that this fall. That Citizens Academy has always been a great thing. I would encourage any sheriff out there that's doing it, keep doing it. Every time we get done with the class, it's just another 12 to 15 ambassadors for our office out there, explaining to the rest of the public what we do. Because let's be honest, if you and I didn't do this job every day, we would have any idea what happens inside those doors. And there's a lot more to it than what I think the general public realizes. And they love it. And our deputies love training them in that aspect of the Citizens Academy because they get to show them what they do every day.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, why not? How about social media presence? You want to plug your social media for your office? Do you guys use that?
We do. Ashley takes care of a lot of that stuff. She always gives me the press releases, social media stuff to push out. I review it. She does a great job on that. put out a fair amount of news releases to try to keep. Unfortunately, it's all been about scams recently, So, I mean, that's a part that I'm weak at because I'm not a real big IT guy, so right. I rely on them to help me with that stuff, if that makes sense. So.
Man, you talk about these scams. How unfortunate are these scams, man? We see these people in our community that have lost, some 6 figures.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's probably an elderly person, maybe widowed, who these scammers, they form these relationships with these people. These folks trust them, and they're naive to certain things, and they're just looking for relationships. And man, they lose their livelihood.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
I mean, we had one the other day was knocking on $600,000, and that's it's probably their retirement, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it
again,
is.
like you say, a widow.
Thank goodness for our small town banking type of opportunities. At times they'll stop some of that, and they might call and say, "Listen, I don't know what to do. I can't tell you people's personal business, but you might want to go talk to John because he's in a bad way and he won't listen to us."
Absolutely.
I don't know. We get the one right now. It's a text message that you got a turnpike ticket, or you got we're going to come arrest you. And I had a guy in my office. Just a few days ago, and he was livid. Like he thought I was texting him that I was going to go arrest him because of this particular issue. I think it was a turnpike ticket or something. And the deputies are trying to tell him, no, we don't. No, the sheriff's not going to text you and tell you he's going to come arrest you over a citation that you didn't pay. And I mean, it's just what a time, man. We live in with that type of thing.
I guess I wish they'd put their energy to going and doing a real job, and they'd probably be very good at it instead of sitting behind a desk and calling people and scamming them out of their money. But your area, our area, we weren't raised that way. Go get a job and fend for yourself. And, I couldn't sleep with myself at night doing that to somebody, but apparently it doesn't bother them. So
that's for sure, man. Well, you said it best. How about this? Just go get a job. Go get a real job where you go to work and you clock in. And absolutely. Well, Doug, is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Anything unique within your office?
Not that comes off the top of my head. What I will say about as far as the BSSA goes, I was in that class of 31. That is a source that every sheriff should be an active member of the BSSA, in my opinion, because of the changing laws. Bob keeps us updated on all this stuff and the friendships you can make. I'll go back to even some of the guys that retired and no longer sheriffs. I mean, what a great resource they were to us, especially me as a young guy coming up, always treated you with respect. Those are the guys I looked up to and went, at someday I want to be like them. I mean, because they were respectful and you knew they ran their offices right, so I'm glad we had that to lean on as I was coming up, and I hope to be that for somebody someday as well. But I think if you're an active member of the BSSA, it just puts you on the right path for, being able to succeed, and keeps you out of hot water. You know what I mean? So, and when you don't know, they'll give you an answer. So,
we couldn't end on any better note than that, man.
Okay.
Well, Sheriff Timmerman, I'd like to thank you for being a part of today's episode. We would like to thank the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association for their sponsorship. For Sheriff Doug Timmerman, I'm Jason Landers, and I'll be right back here next month featuring another Ohio sheriff or deputy on the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast.
Hi, my name is Bob Cornwell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, located in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. It was brought to you by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. With this podcast, we are striving to introduce you to sheriffs and deputies from around the state of Ohio and recognize their great work they do every day for the citizens of Ohio. For more information about our organization, Google Buckeye State Sheriff. Thank you.